right, let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome to this session on common business use cases for generative AI. I am Nima Dakaniko. I'm a product manager at Google for our generative AI portfolio, but I will turn it over to our esteemed guests here who can introduce themselves because we do have a very packed panel. And we're going to start with you, Ignacio.
Hi everybody, I'm Ignacio Garcia. I'm the Global Director of Data Analytics and AI for Vodafone, and I'm also the CIO of Vodafone Italy.
Hey everyone, Arvind Krishnanand here. I head engineering at Blue Core, so I run engineering, data science, and our solution architecture teams.
Hi, I'm Donna. I lead the technical solutions management team for Generative AI at Google Cloud. And together with the solution architecture teams, with Kevin's team, we identify, design, and build AI solutions.
Hi, I'm Kevin Tsai. As Donna said, I lead the solution architecture team. We build GenAI solutions, and we also do ML infrastructure as well.
Very cool. Okay, so let's start first by talking about top business use cases. And Donna, I'm going to start with you on this one, but I really want to understand, many people here are like, look, GenAI, fantastic, this is great, I'm sold, but what are those top use cases? How do we prioritize them? How do we get started?
Sure, yeah, so I can start with prioritization and then go into a few use cases. So we really, in our prioritization, we focus on our customers, what will really add value to them, where are they seeing friction points, and then the technical implementation of that. We also look internally to some of our research teams and think about how can we take those innovations and then bring those to our customers. So one example that we worked on around 1.5 years ago was AlphaFold on Google Cloud. So DeepMind had this amazing research, and maybe to give a little bit of context on the protein folding problem, scientists have long been interested in solving the protein folding problem because once a protein's structure within a cell is understood, then scientists are able to develop drugs that can modulate its function. But for healthcare organizations, in order to be able to actually leverage that, they need additional requirements. So for example, reproducibility, scalability, it has to be cost effective. And so we took their amazing research and we operationalized it on Google Cloud through a solution. Some other areas more recent where we're seeing traction are, for example, product cataloging. So being able to categorize when there's a new product, label it for search, and then also create the website copy. And Arvind and his team have done some amazing work in this space. And customer service operations. And it's not just a conversational agent, which you may have experienced on a website that's answering questions, but also internally, for example, supporting SRE teams with postmortem search and summarization, which we've done some work on, but also supporting support agents with summarization and next steps. And Ignacio and his team have done some great work here. So.
Excellent. Arvind, we were talking about here, what are some of the use cases and prioritizations that your organization does?
Yeah, before I jump into a use case, maybe just a little bit step back in what we Blue Core do so we can connect the dots. So we are an identification and a customer movement platform. So we work with large enterprise retailers to identify and then convert shoppers to repeat customers. So we've used traditional AI and created over 20 retail models using first-party data. So shopper information, behavioral data, and then product information. So these models are baked into our platform so marketer can use these models to create campaigns and audiences. So the content that needs to be generated, the channels in which to deliver these, the content, and finally the timing when to deliver are all personalized on a per shopper basis. So with the advent of GenAI, we looked at a couple of areas. One is how can we improve our features on our platform. We looked at internal efficiencies as well, and opportunities to better serve our customers. So the problem that she was referring to is core to our value proposition. So taking unstructured product catalog data and mapping it to Google's product taxonomy. So for example, a retailer could call this a t-shirt. Another retailer could call it categorize it as a crew cut t-shirt, and so on and so forth. But if you standardize it in the Google's taxonomy, this is probably labeled as a t-shirt, which is categorized under a shirt, which is apparel, and so on. So there are a number of advantages to standardizing product catalog. One is we will improve our models and our recs. Customers will be able to now analyze performance within their product catalog. And finally, we will be able to deliver trends within verticals across the retail space. So using GenAI, we were not very successful using traditional AI. So with GenAI, we were able to solve this specific problem.
Very cool, absolutely. Vodafone, hopefully people are a little bit more familiar with it in terms of what you do, but love to understand your use cases and prioritizations.
No, thank you. I think that I still will take a couple of minutes just to explain the complexity that we have, and that context maybe help to understand how are we using what we're using. So we are a telecommunication company. We do mobiles, we do televisions, we do fixed lines, and we do IoT. So the whole package across the world. We have more than 300 million customers. We have billions of IoT devices. So I'm just talking about the scale. And then it's in Europe and in Asia and in other areas. So languages are completely diverse. And this is another point that is very important on how we're using and the type of problems that we need to resolve. Probably a bit of background as well is we have been very focused on partnership with Google on cloud and data. So Google is our partner on the data domain. And we have been very focused on making sure that our data is in the right place, is safe for our customers. We have the anonymization, we have all the regulations that we have in Europe around privacy, and we're super focused on that. And we have been using AI and we have been using Google tooling for many of our normal operations. So if I go, it will be short models analysis on trying to understand why the customers are going up, next best offered models. That is on the customer side, but then if you go to the network, we do analysis in where to deploy the network, so CapEx efficiency, which is super important, or we call it predictive maintenance, so trying to understand what is going to break and be sure that we can replace the components. And that was successful. But then with GenAI, we have been now experimenting and it's a completely different dimension. For example, the use case that you are saying, we did implement it in Italy. So we are getting all the calls that our customers are making to the call centers. We're translating them into text. And then we are getting a summarization of the problems. What was the original intention? To reduce the risk while the customers are calling us and to drive dramatically the deep detractors, so the amount of deep detractors. This is only possible now that we have large language models available. And we were able to do it very fast because we have been very consistent on creating the data structures to combine the models with our data in a good way. But this use case in particular, so we're taking these 50,000 calls, translating them into text, summarizing and getting the reason of the problems. And it's a complete game changer because then we understand what the customers are really saying. We don't need to do surveys and get high-level data. We are really getting to the actual details on why are they calling us, and then we can intervene on that. And then that data, that was the original reason, and then that data has become key to do other things, to understand behaviors and understand potential upselling and other areas. The other important thing on that is we need to replicate that across all the countries. Yeah. So replicability and scale is fundamental. It's not only doing and what is the use case, is can we do it fast? Can we do it secure? Can we do it across the wall in a way that we can repeat? And we will talk later about Vertex AI and different components on Google have allow us or is allowing us to do that. Yes.
Absolutely. It was interesting. I think both of you actually spoke about data and like taxonomies and data structures. So this goes into our second question around how do you actually technically design these solutions? And Kevin, I'll start with you.
Okay, so Donna's team and my team have worked on a number of different business use cases applying GenAI. And what's interesting is to see a few technical patterns kind of surface up, or it just kind of permeates across the different use cases, right? So the first one is, how do I get data that's outside of the LLM, right, into my application, right? So that use case is very pertinent to customer support, right? For example, so one of the very common technical patterns is to use like a embedding model to process your unstructured data and then index it with a vector database. So matching engine, or now called vector search, right, is a very popular option. And now we also have AlloyDB with pgvector as well, right? So there are a lot of options for that. And after you index that, then you can very quickly retrieve your unstructured data, images and text and so forth. The other type of data retrieval we're now seeing, right, is to use a coding model like Cody to generate the SQL, right, to access your relational database, or to generate Cypher to access Neo4j, right? So that's kind of another kind of up and coming type, pattern that we're seeing. And another area that we're seeing is around application of these language, or these transformer models to non-image, non-text use cases, right? So one of the partners that we're working with, Full Story, we're helping them build a sequence model to analyze and predict user events, right? And finally, with Donna mentioned AlphaFold, right? Well, AlphaFold actually is a transformer model. It's very interesting. So instead of generating language or image, it generates protein structures, right? So we took DeepMind's research. We broke the inference pipeline, which is actually a multi-step pipeline, right? So we applied different types of compute to the different processes. The earlier parts has a lot of data retrieval, so we use high IOP CPU nodes. For the later compute stages, which is extremely compute intensive, we use NVIDIA A100 GPUs. Right, so that's how we can optimize, right? Going from research to production. We also need to make sure that we have reproducibility, right, and experiment tracking. And for that, we use Vertex metadata, right? And to kind of stitch it all together, we use Vertex pipelines to automate the process. So adaptation is another very interesting area that we're seeing more customer demands.
Very good. Ignacio, I'll go to you first. What are those technical considerations that you have to have when you're trying to deploy this around the world, essentially?
The first thing, and again, is scalability and replicability of what we're doing. Because we have to secure the data. We have a lot of local regulations about GDPRs in different countries have their own flavors. We have to create, or we have created policies around making sure that there are no bias in the model, or making sure that we can detect those bias. So it's very regulated, the world in Europe, probably very different to America, but there we have to comply with a lot of things. And you can do these things, but takes a lot of time. And by the time that you deploy, then your data science are going to kill themselves because they have been spending 99% of their time in activities that are not related to the model. So architecturally, what we have done is take out the problem of data transport. So making sure that the data arrives to the right place is something that we do, and we do with an engineering that we have created for all the data logistics that allow us to monitor, to make sure that the data is encrypted, the data is anonymized, and if we change anything on the policies, that applies for all the data pipelines that we have across. So that has been designed. Then we have the processing side with BigQuery standard. And then in the top, and here is where Vertex and your product is fundamental, we have been a very early adopters of Vertex AI. We created something that we call the AI Booster based on Vertex AI. It's our adaptation. But there is where we receive the models and where we then exchange and make sure that we can do what you were saying, which is running models with your own data and data that is offside. So architecturally, we have data logistics. We have where we have policies, security, encryption, monitoring, all the good stuff. Then we have the engine that runs all the queries, which is our real nerve systems, if you want to call it like this. And then in the top, we have created, with Vertex AI, the interface to run all the models and to co-create. What is that allowing us? That now our data science are now working on encryption, data engineering, all the bureaucracy, and equally we can share models across the market. So the data engineering in Italy that have created this model are now just passing the information, and the guys in Germany that are going to run it can do it in weeks rather than in months, which was the previous setup. So it's very, very important for us to take and spend that time on making sure that we have the foundation right. Then in parallel, we allow a lot of experimentation because it's very important that the people can experiment and see the power in a safe environment where they can play and they see that the model is right, but the deployment is very automatized and it's very secure.
Excellent.
So it's a lot of engineering behind to allow us to run it properly.
Arvind, can you double click into the technical aspects of your solution?
Sure. So the team came up with a really ingenious two-step process. So on the one hand, we have thousands of product catalog in our database, and then the Google product taxonomy has roughly around 5,500 classes and subclasses. So what the team did was first use Gecko to create the embeddings and to sort of reduce and narrow down the options, and then pass that along to create a prompt and pass that through Text Bison to create the final result.
Very cool, very cool. Okay, so this is a little bit of a self-serving question, but why did you choose Google Cloud? And it can't be Donna and Kevin, so that's not on the table. But
for us, it was a proper process, like 5-6 years ago. We were defining our cloud strategy first, and we did a very thorough analysis. And the three reasons I would say is your heritage in data. So you have that. The innovation roadmap that you were proposing and the approach and the ways of working. It was very refreshing to see that it was a relation on co-innovation and trying to tackle problems together rather than this is the price list and just you consume these products and services. And we have done that and we have been very good partners so far.
always have to make sure so far, right? Yeah. Arvind?
So Bluecore is natively built on GCP, and so the team is very, very comfortable using the tools and technology. And Google has done a fairly good job building the GenAI technologies alongside the existing technologies. The other things which you mentioned around data governance, security are important to us, and a lot of those are also baked into the GenAI technology. So I think that's the first. The second one is we actually started this project on GPT 3.5, and we got really good results. And then we elevated to, moved on to GPT 4, and we got really good results as well. And then when Google released Palm 2, we decided to try it out. And so far, the results have definitely been better than what we've seen with OpenAI's models.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Okay, so we've talked about use cases, we've talked about like technical solutions, but at the end of the day, it's all about that business value, right? Like how do you actually see those business results? Donna, like I want to talk to you about this, like start with you. How do we see those business results? And can you give me some examples? Because without them, it's kind of pointless, right? Like you want to see those results. So go.
Yeah, so let me start with AlphaFold. So in the case of AlphaFold, the customers were able to conduct experiments much faster, get much quicker insights, and also minimize the high ratio of failures from more traditional methods. And I mean, the impact was really incredible to see, and is also one of the reasons why I'm in this field, because they were able to accelerate the drug discovery process, both biotech and pharmaceutical companies alike. More generally, I would say within the generative AI space, we see customers getting benefits in terms of employee productivity, allowing them to focus on more value-added tasks. We see more intuitive experiences being built with generative AI and also better user experiences. And then also new insights or new ideas that weren't possible before. But I think Arvind and Ignacio will have great input here.
Yeah. Arvind?
We had two overarching goals for this specific project. So the first one was obviously the accuracy of the data and the results, and then the cost of building and maintaining this feature. And what we found was using LLM and GenAI, we achieved both goals. Mm-hmm. So sort of to step back, we attempted to solve this problem last year using traditional AI techniques. And like I mentioned, you're talking of thousands of product catalogs. We have around 5,000 plus classes in the Google taxonomy, and trying to build a model using that is extremely difficult. And now to scale that across multiple verticals within the retail space makes it even more challenging. So for us, it was extremely expensive, both from a human time perspective, computational resources, and the amount of data we needed to train and build those models. And a lot of those were solved with GenAI.
Absolutely.
I think that I will talk about 3 dimensions of benefits. First, I will go to the use case and the reason why I'm here, which is that summarization and the understanding on what the customers are calling us. And then I will go to the 3 areas where we are working on generative AI, because that's one use case, but really, we are going ahead in many areas. And finally, from technology point of view, the benefits about velocity and cost of building, because that is what I'm responsible for. The other 2 are more on the business side. So this particular use case, which is the summarization on all the calls and why people is calling to our call centers, is very simple. We were not able to do it before. Mm-hmm. So it's a paradigm change. In the past, that was impossible to do. As simple as that. And now we can do it. And that information has changed completely our understanding and our relation and proximity with our customers, because we were doing surveys and getting scores and getting some comments, and then it was a team trying to understand what that means, and then we were crossing that data with technical problems that we have, and then making interpretations. And you should see the debates that we had in our customer boards that we create to try to understand and be better. And now we have really, really, really granular information that is precise, is what they are saying. It's not what we think that they are saying. So that is a paradigm change. I cannot put money on that, but we are trying to reduce 30% of our detractors, and we are in that track. So it's doing very well. Then if I go to the second one, which are the different areas, I would say we are working on all the chatbots and interaction with the customers. It's early days. We see an incredible opportunity in there. So we have chatbots, but we have to invest a lot of money and time on training the different languages, and hence the explanation about the fact that we operate in a multi-language is expensive, is not precise, the experience for the customer is not correct. And our early tests are showing that this can be, again, a paradigm change in comparison with what we were doing before. So one big area by the different domains, so customers, operations, all the different call centers that we have is the chat box. The second one is what we call co-pilot. So it's making sure that the people can really do their job better. Mm-hmm. And that implies a lot of areas. So we're talking about, if you are in my team, in the technical team, coding, we see productivity that is 10 to 1 in comparison with not using it. Still experimental. I'm not talking about details, but legacies. So we grow through mergers and acquisitions. So we have a lot of legacies with documentation that is non-existent and knowledge that is disappearing of there. And with generative AI, we are testing how to get those systems documented. And that changed, again, our ability to run operations in a different way, or to maintain systems that were not possible to maintain. So we are experimenting in what we call co-pilot. And you can add every different business area, and we are doing experiments on that. And then it's knowledge management. Yeah. We're a massive company. We have a lot of information. Managing knowledge is a big problem for us. And doing it well can change completely how our customers are receiving our services. And that is the third area. So the first benefit was in the proper bit. The second is in these 3 areas. And finally, from me, something like Vertex AI and all the engineering is the velocity. So the fact that we were able to do in weeks, not a prototype, but a real application that is working for taking all the calls in a full country, is just because the tools are there, and the cost and the velocity of deploying is helping us to really get the value.
Yeah. I really like this framing of, again, it's what are you changing? How much does it cost? How effective is it? And then can you measure that? right? Because otherwise it's just a boondoggle and you're spending money and who knows what's happening. But then if you can prove it, you can double down on it and build on top of it. Absolutely. Kevin, can you talk a little bit about what you learned along the way of this magical GenAI journey?
In short, I learned that we have to continue learning. I mean, there's so much to learn. I mean, think about where we were 6 months ago, right? Look at where we are today. You can imagine what it's like 6 months from now, right? So it's a new normal. The new normal is you're going to really have to keep the learning up. But then the good news is accessibility, right? Think about a year ago. How could you get your hands onto LLMs, right? You have to spin up your own VMs, just set it all up, download some framework, install it yourself before you can even prompt it, right? And you probably have to troubleshoot a bunch of libraries and stuff like that along the way. I mean, we've gone through that, so yeah. Today, it's available everywhere. All the cloud vendors have it. We have Cohere, we have Anthropic. There's really no excuse to not have that hands-on experience, right? So go for it, and there are all these, you can sign up for free and try it out, right? So definitely try it out. And we have frameworks like LangChain to help you build these applications as well, right? So go hands-on. I think the last thing also is we used to say, read the manual, right? I think in this world, we may want to start saying, read the papers. Papers as in research papers, right? So you'll get a lot of insight of what's going on, right? So a lot of this started with the Transformer paper back in 2017. It's still a really good paper to read, right? So there are good papers. If you don't have time, read the abstract, right? But I think that's where you could really get up to speed on what's coming down the pipe.
I would used to go to the Google AI blog and just read all the papers they were publishing because I was like, listen, if Google's publishing it, it's probably state of the art. So yeah, that's how I used to cheat sheet my way through the
cheat sheet, yeah, exactly.
The papers.
Or you could run it through an LLM to summarize.
Get a summarization, right? Yeah. Arvind?
I think for a subset of problems like the one that I mentioned, I think LLMs provide a phenomenal foundation because there is so much information encoded in these models because they're trained on so much relevant data. It makes the lift for us a lot easier, right? Like I mentioned, we tried this with traditional AI, and it was really not sustainable for us to scale this. And what GenAI is now able to provide are the tools for us to not only solve, but able to scale problems such as the one that I mentioned.
Very cool. Ignacio?
For me, 3 things. One is really transformational. Everybody can see it. Don't try to centralize it in IT or in any area. Let the people experiment. So make sure that you create a safe environment for experimentation, and you can measure that to then decide where you're going to invest. But let the people play because the people need to play. Don't restrict. On the other hand, invest in foundation because it is the only reason or the only way to get real value is combining the LL models with your own data. So invest in foundation, invest on getting the right architecture because then you can go super fast when the experiments shows that this is a use case that is worth to scale. So that is my learning thing. And sorry, one more. Speak with your CEO, make sure that they understand the potential, the value, and they are not bombarded by vendors telling them that it's a bullet point, a silver bullet to resolve every single problem. So invest in education, invest on bringing the whole company in. And do not stop, do not centralize it because then you kill it.
I've heard so many customers say, the board of directors and CEO have told me, we need to do this ASAP. And so yeah, it's in every single boardroom, every single CEO office. Okay, one last question, and then we'll open it up to Q&A. So get ready. There are mics here in case you want to ask questions. But last question, advice. Any other pieces of nuggets of wisdom that you have for the audience here in terms of business use cases?
Sure. Yeah. So I would say, and I think we've all touched on this already, but is experiment and iterate. So generative AI truly has the potential to transform each industry. We're living in a very exciting time, but nothing really substitutes hands-on experience, right? To understand what the value is specifically for your business, and also to understand the limitations. So I would look within an organization and customers that we've seen be successful do this is really look at who's excited to pioneer this, which domain experts and which machine learning experts, get them together to identify what does success look like, to work on the use case, And we did this as well. So we actually worked with an SRE team on the postmortem search and summarization use case, where we worked with experts that really helped define what success looks like, if our outputs are good. We started with a very small set of experts. We gradually expanded to a trusted tester group. We started with a small data set of 100 postmortems. We expanded to 1,000 postmortems, and now we're rolling this out more broadly. And so that would be my advice, is just get started.
So I consider GenAI or LLM as being yet another tool in your toolbox, right? So as you go through building features, I'm sure you have some success metrics. And if GenAI is going to help you reach those metrics and those goals, then yes, that's the right tool, right? So that's the first thing. And given, as you mentioned, Kevin, like how rapidly things are changing, pick use cases that has a tolerance for getting it wrong. So, for example, pick use cases that are internal facing, or pick use cases that have a human in the middle so you can rectify if there are issues. The last one I would say is invest in tooling and technology and platform. What I mean by that is today we run 20 plus models. We have customers asking us questions about the performance, the output of the models. Our teams have to debug, fix issues. So we've built a lot of tooling to be able to observe and scale the systems. So I keep reminding my team, if you're going to build a ship, be prepared for a shipwreck, right? So while you're, yes, focused on LLM and GenAI, ensure you have enough tooling and platforms to support that.
Absolutely.
Nothing else to add. I think I already mentioned it, but it's precisely that.
I think my piece of advice is, if anyone tells you they know what GenAI is going to be doing in 5 years, they're lying to you. So, stay humble, stay attached to the actual, short-term use cases, because I'm sure it's going to be crazy in 5 years, but we're to your point, we're all just like, wait, what did we announce? So, absolutely. All right, we're out of time. Love it if you, give us feedback here, and I think we'll be around if you have any other questions as well. Thank you, everyone.